so excited.
Yeah, I am super excited. I'm so excited to have you here, Laura. I feel like for anyone listening, whether they're listening in on the video or the podcast, you've heard me say body mind coaching, body mind method 1,000 times, and I feel like I need to like roll out a red carpet, but here's Laura. Like, no, I know we joke about this, but no, I am truly honored to have you here. I'm so excited. I'll let you introduce yourself and all of that, but what I've been encouraging people to share is just what lights you up, who you are, anything that comes to mind with you. So I would love to start with that. Just introduce yourself and all that good stuff.
Oh my goodness, you're putting the pressure on me. This is fun. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's been so fun watching you bring on so many of our body mind coaches and share this work. And it's just like, I see them like, oh my goodness, it's happening. Because this, what you're talking about, how something just lights you up, body mind coaching, literally, this has just been a passion project of mine and a curiosity of mine. And it started when, I don't, we could go through the life story, but we won't go there. But when I started practicing as a massage therapist, my background's in biology. And so I'm a science nerd. I was like origin insertion of all the muscles and knowing the biology and the anatomy and physiology. And it was amazing. And I loved when I stepped into massage, it was like, I love human anatomy and physiology, and I love helping people. And there was something really beautiful that started to happen. And, part of my journey of coming into massage, I was healing from a tragic event in my life. And as I went through massage school, I became very aware of a lot of the stress and feelings that, I didn't allow myself to process in my life were being stored in my body. And what was so cool is that as I'm going through massage school, I'm like, I felt like I found myself again, like through my body, through just that ability to feel. And when I started practicing, what happened was I saw my clients, they would come in and their shoulders were hurting and their backs were hurting, or they're like clenching their fists or whatever. And then they would, I'd be working on a shoulder and they would start to tell me about all the stress that they were carrying. They would tell me about like always feeling like their boss was looking over their shoulder, or, that they, like I would watch moms as they would talk about their kids and their shoulders would like go up to their ears. And like literally I would see them like try and hold their babies, and so I saw these things happening and I was like, holy crap, their body is talking to them. And while I can sit here and I can press on a trigger point and I can stretch a quad and I can do the physical work that I've been trained, I just knew that there was what I was really seeing was this disconnection. And how in our culture we've been taught for so long that the brain knows it all, that we need to think our way forward, that we need to have it all planned out and together. And I literally just saw this conversation, this energy, this message trying to come through, and people didn't know how to hear it. And it wasn't, I know that we all have our past and our stories and we all have our own traumas and stuff like that. This was just like everyday messages. This was, hey, that job, you're selling, like you're not living aligned with your values in that job. You're not, that relationship, like you're selling yourself short. Or just a simple message of like, put me first, listen to me. Like I'm here, and so I wanted to give voice to the body. And that's what led me into coaching. And Alina, this is something that I've been playing with lately, and really like this was one of my downloads that I've had recently. I learned and understood the structure of a coaching session, and so much of coaching out there is all about the mind, which is great. And here I am having this background that's all about the body. And I was like, I know these two come together. And my realization that I've had this week is that I believe body work and the holistic practices that all the people you're talking to, that we all bring into the world, I believe that is the ultimate form of coaching. And when you give somebody space, like you part of this is, I mean, if you want to nerd out on the anatomy and physiology of this, you know, part of this is how the body and the brain communicate together. They are meant to work together, but we're often taught to separate them. And so you need to give voice to the body. And that's why that conversation is so powerful. And so what happened is, as I started to bring in this coaching structure with my body work, what happened is my clients started to have amazing results in their lives. It blew my mind that just giving them the tools to start to be curious and start to ask, hey, shoulder, what are you trying to say to me? That not only did their pain get better, that they were able to better manage their stress, but they started to make better decisions in their life that were more aligned with what they wanted, with their truth, with, I know, their values. That's been a big one that we talk about. And it was just amazing to see all of this unfold. And I was like, holy cow, like this is bigger and beyond me. And so that's, I don't know if that's the introduction.
No. Yes.
Short story, I took that and created this thing called BodyMind Coaching. And now.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I appreciate you giving that background, because those are like a lot of my questions, but I love it. And, you know, you mentioned passion project. This was something that you're passionate about. And, you know, this started years ago, right? And there's so many things I want to ask, but I want to kind of zero it into, especially for those listening who are on their journey and at the starting point, if you will. It starts with getting to know, for me anyways, it starts with getting to know that part of who I am, that deeper part that, like you mentioned, we're so disconnected from in the beginning because we are taught, we over exercise that part of our intelligence, our head knowing, our mind space, and that just takes over and keeps us in that disconnected space without knowing. But for me, knowing myself, knowing what my core values are, and hearing you speak with passion, just hear it, like I could hear that passion in your voice, speaking about this passion project that you had, and now it's happening. Like, you know, all of my collaborations have been, honestly, my connections have been because of this body mind journey that I've taken, which started with you following your passion. So my question is, your starting point, what was that pivotal moment, or maybe it's a core value of yours that you had to reconnect to?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What would you say that was for you?
Core value. Oh man, that is a great question. So there was pivotal moment and core value. That's what I heard in there. Is that correct? I can look back in my life and I can see multiple pivotal moments. I will say that there's so many directions I can go in this, so this is really fun. It's funny because like there's the incident that brought me into body work was the loss of two of my friends in a horrible scuba diving accident that I was supposed to be on. And ironically, what saved me in that was my intuition. So there's two things that are kind of coming up for me. So is it okay if I share both of those?
Yeah.
Okay. So before I got into massage, I actually worked as I taught marine ecology in the Bahamas at a field station. It was quite fun. You know, I was in my 20s and running around on boats and, you know, scuba diving and snorkeling every day. And I worked there with a friend of mine that she and I had gone from preschool through college together. And we worked with a Bahamian guy as well. And the three of us were like, you know, the three musketeers and get into all sorts of fun stuff. And on New Year's Day, 2003, we were going to go celebrate the new year with a scuba dive to a location that we had never been to before. And at the last minute, I was getting my gear ready. And at the last minute, like as a diver, your ears are really important, like having healthy ears. I just felt this like sharp shooting pain in my ear. And it like stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, but I want to go. Like we've been planning on this for a while. Like I'm really excited. And I kept walking and I had my gear and then I felt it again. And I was like, okay, this is a little weird. Maybe I should be aware of this. And then I was like, but I really want to go. So I took a couple more steps, and like, I felt like the pain lit up my entire body. And I heard this voice that said, don't go. And my friend Jenny, she walked in the door right at that moment. And I don't think I had time to process it logically. And just the timing of it, she walked in, I had this like thing happened. And I turned to her and I said, I don't think I should go. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And, I was like, I felt something in my ear. And she's like, okay, well, you got to protect your ears. And gave me a hug. And that was it. That was the last time I ever saw them. They never surfaced. And so I think, and for me, so much of when I talk about me going into massage school and what I got to heal, I was told after this, because, I think this is a little side note. I think our culture struggles with processing grief, especially unexpected grief. My grandfather passed away about 2 weeks after this happened, and I went to both funerals within a week. And what was crazy about this was that, like, at his funeral, I'm so sorry, he's in a better place. And at Jenny's funeral, it was, don't feel guilty. Don't feel like, everybody over and over, don't feel guilty, don't feel guilty, don't feel guilty. Because I was really struggling with the survivor guilt of what happened. And what happened is, so this is fun with how we store emotions in the body. Guilt tends to be stored in our hips. And I didn't know this at the time, but a couple months later, I started having severe hip pain in my left hip. And it was basically this message, don't feel, over and over and over again. And I think all of us, whether it's guilt, whether it's, I think of how we're raised, like, don't be too loud, don't be, oh God, I can't even think of any right now on the spot, but you probably can think of some. Like, don't be too loud. Don't,
even don't cry,
don't cry. Yeah. Don't be too emotional.
It's okay. Like, even when like a new mom, like, cries, it's okay. Don't cry. Like,
yeah. Yes. I have a new son, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh crap. I watch the things coming out of me. And when he cries, I'm like, what are you trying to say? I'm listening. Like, that's what I say when he cries. And the impulse to be like, don't cry is so strong. So much of that emotional processing happened there. So I would say, I actually think one of my core values is intuition. For that reason of, it took me a good decade to really find a place of being okay with the survivor guilt, but also within that healing, to honor my intuition, because it really saved my life in that moment. And so I think that healing of the guilt and processing that also opened up that idea that I see my clients hearing this intuition. I see the body literally talking to people every day. And so it's so important to me. I mean, the value of intuition for me has allowed me to navigate my business and navigate the choices I make in my life. And so that is something that, and you and I know we've had this conversation. I actually believe that your intuition is the power of the Holy Spirit in your life. So for me, intuition is a very deep connection with God. And it's God working through me through that connection. And you have to be present to your body in order to hear that.
Yeah, I love that. And then, it just makes me think of what you were first saying when you were explaining the body-mind connection, and basically it's giving voice to the body, right? Giving voice to that. You've discussed this a lot in our program and just in conversation. I know it comes up a lot for me, but understanding human design, what you're working with, who you are, understanding your full intelligence, understanding the knowing of your brain, your heart, your gut mind, in that gut space, in that core space, like I like to call it, is your intuitive knowing, so giving voice to that. I mean, it just makes total sense that with your passion project, naturally, that how that evolved is, if that's your core value, that is a huge major way to give voice to the body through that body mind method, the body mind connection. And I wanted to bring it back to that because I know when I found your program, I was very disconnected. And I didn't exactly know. I didn't know. It's subconscious disconnection, right? You don't know. You just, things are not aligning. You don't know what's going on. But there is that internal gut knowing. Like when you expressed your story, and that always gets me, because I've heard that one several times. But I mean, it is, grief and loss are so, they're such raw, deeper emotions. And when you experience that tends to be a lot of the, like, those pivotal moments where you hit rock bottom, and then you hear that voice, or your body does, like, but you were showing it, like that gut knowing, that intuitive voice usually of the body usually has to do with body communication, body movement. And that is what's missing. You were discussing that before, we started talking in our session today, but about people wanting to help. I know a lot of coaches, a lot of mindset coaches, like you mentioned, are trying to offer these pieces of support for people to connect to their body, but there's still something missing. And I know you have a lot to say with that, so I'd love to hear.
Yes. And oh my God, like 20 million things that I want to say about this. So again, what I found so interesting when I found coaching, it was like, think things through, think positive, mindset. And like, I can read all of these self-help books, and they're amazing and they're wonderful and they give you great tools. And then it's like, the body is secondary. It's like, and then trust your intuition, listen to your gut feelings, right? Take care of your body. But it's like, take care of your body is like, it almost becomes another to-do list of a thing that you have to perfect and sculpt and
routine, like from
and it's and that the languaging, and it's such a subtle little thing, but that languaging, it still puts the body second. It still makes us think that we can control this thing, and if we can control the body into a certain place, then we can have then we can have what we desire. Now, here's the other interesting that I find. They talk so much, mindset coaching talks a lot about like the subconscious mind. Your body is actually your subconscious mind. And it's really the one that's like running the show. And if you don't have tools of truly how to connect with this, like I'm not talking, like I love green juice and I love, exercising and movement. All of those things are great tools. It's a deeper conversation of really being able to feel and know and hear and listen and trust when those messages start to come through. And so what drives me crazy, and right now as we are interviewing in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, I'm watching these mindset coaches that are like, hustle and go and grind and do the things and trust your gut and listen to your intuition. And I am so passionate for the holistic healing community, because I want us to step up and see, and I'm going to go on a sidetrack here in a second. I want the healing community to step up and start to empower people how to listen. And, I remember when I first started doing massage, like it weirded me out, because I would start to hear these messages. And I used to think that I had to be the one to tell my clients what their body was saying. And then I realized, this is a teach a man to fish, or sorry, what is it? Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. I realized I was giving them fish, like I was creating this dependent relationship that they had to come to me to listen to their body and then have the clarity and go out. And what I realized, and part of why I started doing body mind coaching, was that I actually wanted them to have the tools in their everyday life that when the shoulder like does the thing, instead of taking the pain pill or trying to shove it down or pushing their way through, they say, maybe I should stop and listen. Right. And I wanted to give them those tools. So right now in the world, people are stressed. People are navigating a new normal. right? People are trying to find their way forward. And I really think that what we teach in Body Mind of coming back to your core values, because your true core values that Alina, like watching your story unfold and also seeing how you support people. By the way, if you don't know what your true values are, go talk to Alina, have a session with her. She's amazing. I think what we need to come back into are our values. And in order to know your values, you have to know how to listen to your body. Right. And starting this conversation. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, healers, like body workers, practitioners. I understand that maybe you can't do your hands-on practices the way you're used to, but that does not mean that you cannot serve people right now. And in fact, I think the true depth of why people see you is actually your way forward as far as businesses and making the world a better place. But I think that there is so much we have to offer in the world. And if we can start to harness the deeper messages that we teach and the principles and the processes that we have been doing with our clients for so long, if we can start to put those out there in a new way, it's really about us stepping forward and being leaders of the future. Mm-hmm. Because I look at all the things that got us into this crisis, and I hope it's okay to go down this, but it's, to me, this is that disease of disconnection. And right now, the world is literally begging us to come home into our bodies. And that, to me, is the path forward. And this is not a just go drink your smoothie and make sure you keep working out right now. This is a like, get still, get quiet, and start to fucking listen. I hope I'm allowed to say that.
No, I agree with you. And like in that disconnection, again, starting point, because like people listening, I feel like this is a perfect time for you to hear this, that what is your body's voice? What does it sound like? You know?
Oh, that's a great question.
And it is a process, you know, for the logical brain that wants to know the process and wants to know what to do. It is a process. There is a way. For those of you who do work one-on-one with me, you know, I'm all about helping you reconnect to understanding the ability of your mind, your heart, and your gut space.
Yeah.
But there is a way to align and honor with all of it. And the body has a lot to say, and we do cut it off, and we do stifle it, and we don't listen to it. But the moment that you do start taking those deep dives, even if it's just momentary, where you start listening to your voice, listening to the feeling, observe. You know, when I first meet someone or I'm in a new situation, a lot of people, I hear, you're so shy and so quiet, because I'm in this, I know now, I'm in this phase of observing and absorbing. When I'm first in a new surrounding and I'm unfamiliar, that's my body's way of protecting and communication, is I observe and I absorb. And now that I know what my core values are, connection, love, integrity, spirituality, all of that stuff, you know, now that I've become aware of that, I now know the voice of connection for me. I know what the voice of spirituality is for me. I know what the voice of love, the intense emotions of that. That's one of the deepest ones for me. But I had to first identify those things. I had to first start and take that moment to be vulnerable. You know, I say that because vulnerable was weakness for me in the beginning. Now it's like I was ready for that. And that's what it means for me to give voice to that gut knowing, that core space, that intuition. And we all have it. You don't need to be like, you have a body, you have a brain, you have a heart, you have an intuitive mind, an intuitive know. But because of the way we were brought up and experiences and defense mechanisms and all of that stuff, you know, we are in a disconnected world, and that is contagious as well. And we teach ourselves how to not listen to that voice. And so we wind up doing things sometimes that doesn't feel right. We don't know why, but you know, we go ahead and do the things that feel right, but still there's something like wrong. So what would it feel like? What would it be like if you learn how to give voice to the body, listen to your intuition, get familiar with that, and use that as a tool to align with it all. You know, there's one thing I love to say is, you know, our brain's ability, if we listen to the thoughts, you know, feel your emotions in your heart, but act from your core, then that's a way that you can actually take all of it and make a better decision for yourself. So yeah, everything you're saying, Laura, I think it's so important for people to hear, especially healers, practitioners, those of us who are not connecting the way that we typically were because of the lockdown, and, you know, to keep our clients' families safe and all of that. There's that block that comes up. You know, I know it would have, I'm thankful that I've had all this awareness already because the shift has been easier for me, but I do put myself where I was at maybe a year or two ago. And if I didn't have this awareness, it would have been a huge block for me. I would have felt like, well, I connect best in person with people. I need to see them. They need to see me, right? So with your experience and how you've so beautifully and continuously helped us keep that in mind, what are some like tips or advice or things that you find to be true or most helpful for those people in this time right now that you kind of touched on when you were wrapping up? Like, what can you do?
Well, I as far as like practitioners or just anybody kind of connecting back in with themselves?
I mean, I think I would love to hear both, because I know that with the BodyMind method, especially for practitioners who are trying to figure out how to surface from all of this, and also how to make these long-lasting connections, if you will, moving forward, whatever's going to happen in the future. That, and yeah, for everyone else who is also feeling that disconnect, but has those moments of, I had a client once who said that when she meets someone, if there's something off about them, she gets this like tingliness on the back of her neck, right? And she was like, she's like, I don't know what that is, but I just know when I feel that there's something wrong with that person, and I'm always right? So we had a brief question on that. But like, so other people who are trying to, I get these feelings or these things that happen in my body, I don't know what it is, so I just ignore it. What is that, you know? So
yeah, I kind of want to do a two-fer here. So number one, I just want to before we step into this, and I think everything you were talking about, like dropping down and starting to acknowledge this core space and starting to take action. So I would just want to remind everybody, like, especially right now, but the thing is, I know right now we have a very, like, it's a worldwide thing. Everybody is feeling it collectively. However, I've been working with people, both in my own practice and as well as practitioners, who reach a point where it's like the old way no longer fits. And so while it's not happening on a global scale, like, have you ever reached a point in your life where you're like, oh crap, I can no longer, like, I can't go back to that job. I can't go back, you know, to seeing those clients. I can't go back to that relationship. And it's like, you're at that moment of like, it feels like you're jumping off a cliff. So I just want to remind you that, so first of all, when you jump off the cliff, it looks like the cliffs of insanity from The Princess Bride, but it's usually like from like the sidewalk to the street where it's really like, oh, and then you're like, fine. So when it comes to starting to listen and trust your intuition, my first thought for everybody would be play with it, make it a game. Like, we're not, Alina and I aren't asking you to go and like make major life decisions if you have no idea what your intuition sounds like. I like to do little things like, I might, well, this is a crazy story. I had this intuitive hit the other day, and I was like, I'm really craving like my favorite Mexican restaurant. And it just happens to be an hour and a half away. And my head's like, girl, you crazy. You don't want to drive an hour and a half to get your favorite Mexican. And I turned to my husband. I was like, I'm really craving Casa Nueva. And he's like, I've been thinking the same thing. Right. So crazy. Like, intuition was picking up on this. And so we end up driving down there, and, you know, we got our Mexican, and they had take and bake. So we now have like a freezer full of our favorite Mexican restaurant, and got to sort of, you know, support a local business and all the things. So what I'm trying to say is, like, when you start off, start with the little things. Like, I'll be driving, I'm like, I think I need to take a left. Right. Or you were talking about, like feeling into things. Now, right now, social distancing might not be the best time, but I would be at the grocery store and just feel like I need to say something to somebody, you know? And so it's like just little games where I'm just like, I don't know how, but I feel like I'm supposed to say hi to you. How are you? What's going on? Like there's little things that, so start to make it a game. And that's going to help build and flex the muscle of your intuition. The other thing that I want to say is if you look back in history, I think one of the biggest challenges we have with our intuition is brain says that's crazy. Body says, but do it anyway. Right. And usually we shut down the body. If you look back on like the business greats and the people who changed history and like, I have a friend, he wrote a book, his name is Richie Norton, and the book is The Power of Starting Something Stupid. And he talks about how all great inventions that moved and changed history as we know it were once a stupid idea. Right. So just know that. So it's starting to play. And right now, the world needs those stupid ideas. As far as practitioners, my encouragement for you guys, if you're like, I can't do my hands-on work, my physical practice has shut its doors. If you see that as a block, number one, I think there's just a little shift of starting to ask yourself, how might this block actually be an opening? And this is for everybody. If you have a life situation, how is what feels like a block an opportunity for me to go deeper, an opportunity for me to tap into my resourcefulness? One of the things that I've been processing lately is I actually believe that the questions we ask are a prayer. And so if you're asking a question of like, why does this never work for me? Guess what prayer you're asking? But if you ask, I think what's next? What's possible? Where can I go from here? I think that's a prayer. And in my life, when I look back on all these situations, what typically shows up when I start asking that prayer is I might have an idea. My brain says, but you have no idea how to do that. So I usually have an idea. And then usually like the teacher, the course, right? The way actually shows up from that whole idea of when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And for me, it's like, when I start to ask that, what shows up is often I'll be like, I could do this. And then it's like the course or the mentor shows up. And what is actually required in that moment is for me to make the choice to show up for me and invest in me and trust in my greatness and trust in my possibility. So I think what that looks like for a lot of practitioners is you probably have had a lot of ideas. I would invite you to reflect upon what advice are you always telling your clients? What are some of the tools and resources that you use for yourself and your own self-care? What are the things that you do naturally that feel like obvious that you can actually start to put out there in a new way? There is so much potential. And I think as we navigate this new normal around the world, people need to know how to bring the body into their life, into those conversations, into their choices. And I have a sense that for most holistic practitioners, that's the thing that you've been preaching for years. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing that's actually going to help you move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And just to add to all of that and following that theme, if you will, of getting to know your voice, if you will, mm-hmm. I like to think of it like what has been really helpful for me, being someone who I used to consider myself very logical, very logical minded. And it got me pretty far with according to success and whatnot in the world.
Yeah.
But in understanding and really giving voice to the other parts of the intelligence, of my full intelligence, of my heart knowing, of my gut knowing, and all of that. One thing that's really helped me, and following with what you're saying, maybe it'll help someone listening, is, when you are someone who's really good at organizing and compartmentalizing and living in that space, at first when I started hearing, well, listen to your gut more, and I'd be like, well, but this has a lot of good stuff to say too, right? So, the way to connect and stay aligned and not disconnect from your headspace and just listen to the body, because you can't just follow the feeling all the time. I mean, you can, but what I'm trying to say is when you do get to know all your voices, I almost like to think of it like a family, like a nice big family, you know, where you have, we'll focus on the siblings here. Maybe there's 3 siblings, right? And like, I almost picture like, you know, I'm with my sister and my brother, and we're like, you know, going on a trip with our parents or whatever. But the voice of each sibling matters. The parents are going to listen to each voice. And, you know, maybe there's the young one, the middle-aged one, and the older one, and they all have different things and to share and different things to say that's all valuable. But of course, like, you know, the young one may have some crazy ideas while the older one has a little bit of experience, whatever, however you want to think about it. But I like to think of it like family, and the voices I link to, you know, that logical knowing, and what is it trying to tell me? What is, you know, everything that I've learned in my life experience, my ability to take information and to, you know, logically organize it. What does that want to say for me in this situation right now? Listen to it, right? Then the heart voice is full of the passion and the life purpose and the desires and the big dreams, and listen to that too. And the way I like to listen to it is like feel it, like literally just breathe down from your head into your heart space. That's when you start getting into the body and feel all of those things. And then go further and download that into your core, and then take all of those logical thoughts and that amazing spreadsheet for me with the feeling, and download it all, let it swirl about, and, you know, find the action that honors it all, because there is an action that honors it all.
And so just as you process that, I'm hoping people who are listening, I'm curious if you notice, because I could actually feel you come down in your body. And I think the important part of like coming down into the core space and into the gut is that that's where you bring the logic and the planning and the ideas and the passion and the feeling. Is when you bring it down into the core that you actually landed in the present moment.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, that would, like, that's important. Maybe this resonates with someone listening. That was really important for me, because my goal starting out on my journey of awareness and path of all that, I felt very disconnected. And as I was trying to reconnect, I felt also that part of me that was like, but don't forget about me. Like, I'm so important too. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a way to like listen to it all. But you have to understand the benefits, the ability, the way that we were put together, designed, the way that we act. It all matters. It's all important. It's just, we're so taught to disconnect from the body that the head is loud.
And beautiful. Cause I do think, when I, and there's a reason we do body mind, not mind body, which drives people crazy, is because I even think mind body like puts that hierarchy of the mind over the body. And so it's a little bit of, I put body mind first because I wanted to give weight to the body, not to say it's the body first, but it's just, I felt like the body has been so ignored in this whole process, or it's always secondary. And you're right. They're meant, they all have unique voices. They're meant to work together and play together. They're like, so Philip Shepard calls it the axis of consciousness, right? So we think that consciousness is up here in our brain, but actually like your consciousness, if you were to imagine like a tube going from the top of your head down to the base of your pelvic bowl, I can actually like, there are some days when my consciousness is up here. There's some days when my consciousness is like down by my solar plexus. There's some days when it's like rooted real deep. They are those 3 brains, the brain in your head, the brain in your heart, and the brain in your body. They are meant to work and collaborate together. And when you, for me, I always imagine it as my heart is my connection to source, and the passion and the feeling is really about, is aligning me with my purpose. Right. And so then when I align myself with that purpose and I bring those feelings down, and then I think like, okay, logically, what tools do I have? What possibilities exist? What are some ways that I might actually begin to put this forward? I can bring that down and combine it with the feeling. And then I love how you like brought it down to your core. When I'm grounded and present in the moment and in tune with that deep inner knowing, I know what the next step is. And it's just one step at a time. And like it is a different way to do this. And I want to reflect, like watching Alina's journey. I remember like on one of the first group calls that you were on, it was very much like, just tell me, just tell me the
Yeah,
one, two,
yeah. I listed it out.
yeah. Just give me the path. And it was even your body it was very rigid. It was very like, there was a sense of like, I'm very professional.
That's so true. I remember that. I still remember, I remember. I have to comment this again, but I remember that first time that you coached me on our Zoom call, where you were like, "Where do you feel that in the body?" And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I should, because I'm a massage therapist. I've been doing this for 15 years. But again, that's what it means to become familiar with the sound and the voice and the feeling to each of those parts of you, that headspace. Yeah. For me, it's like my logical brain was so loud, and it's so protective and dominant that was the part of me that was active in that session. That was like, all right, I'm here to list this out. She asked me what I forget if it was like values or something. And I'm like, I want to be accomplished, like that was like the first thing that came up. And I look back on that recording sometimes, and I could see it too with the body communication. And that was less than a year ago. So it is a journey. It is a process. It starts with wanting to know and make that transition into conscious awareness. But the goal is, for those in their logical mind space right now, it is to reconnect and to be able to be your best advocate, and the goal is always to be happier, to be successful in relationships, and to really enjoy this life. And this is how you enjoy it. Like, you literally give voice to the parts of you that you've been suppressing. For me, I learned that my suppression of my body's voices was that huge protective defense mechanism, because of the fears, because of that huge fear that felt like, if I stop and listen to this shoulder pain right now, I'm just going to lose it. I'm going to cry. And I don't want to do that, because crying is for weak people, whatever those limiting beliefs were, or old voices. But, it is the process. And once you, like you said, jumping off the cliff is really just a step down. That's exactly how it is. Like, once you actually take that step forward, you realize that what your brain was telling you, was only because it was like that scared child that was afraid for you, was trying to protect you in the best way it knows how. But the brain was meant to help you logically come up with, like, using your resources and aligning it. When you take action from that deeper knowing, then you actually find a way to I feel like the more that you learn what your voice sounds like in your intuitive space, the more that you learn to trust it. And then when you actually do take those even small action steps, like you're saying, like if you're in the car and you just feel like you have to make a left turn, and you do, when you honor that, you start creating that, like you say, that new neural pathway, and then your process is already started. And the more that you do that, the more that you actually prove, your brain wants proof. The more you prove to your logical mind that, oh, okay, it's not so bad. Like, if you, okay, body, you can talk a little bit more,
I have like 20 million things I want to say this, and you can totally do this in two parts if that is like better. But your brain, and again, we're not trying to downplay the brain. The brain is a powerful tool. And your brain typically will think in the way you feel. Right? So this idea that I'm going to think my way into feeling better, like, have you ever sat in front of the mirror and been like, you're a beautiful princess and everybody loves you, and then like in the back of your head you're like, yeah, but like, it's so when you start to tap into that core space, your brain actually starts to think alongside of it, and it taps into that creativity, that innovation, and that's where you start to map forward. And I had a little download as you were talking, because I think people who are listening might hear this to be like, this is super woo, this is super like high level, like, just tell me the 1, 2, 3. Right? And so I don't know why, but I can't stop smiling, and I feel like it's you, so I just had to say that. This is the paradox of, I do think that, like, when we talk about business, or when we talk about the BodyMind method, like, there are structures and frameworks, right? I like to think of it as scaffolding, right? That, like, like if you build a cathedral, you need the scaffolding, but like, it's the cathedral that gives it the magic, right? So there are some support systems that are helpful, or like guideposts as you're navigating this.
Mhm.
The problem people get into is they think if I know the 3 steps, then I'll be safe, then I can feel how I want to feel. And
Mhm.
so the paradox that's coming through in this, while it may feel like we're talking about this like high level woo woo, you know, with 3 brains, yada yada yada, that is your logical path forward. There is no right way to your success. There is only your way. And the sooner you get out of the, I have to get this right, I have to get this perfect, I have to know all the answers, I have to have it together, I have to look a certain way, whatever that is, as soon as you get out of that, reconnect. Your values are so important, because I think your values are really the essence of you. And chronic stress shows up when you're not living and aligning with those values.
Mhm.
And so getting in touch with your values, really like knowing the passion and the purpose and feeling what lights you up, right? Starting to embody that, and then to ask the brain, hey, what are some possible ways that I could start to play and expand and put things out there? How can I, and again, you're going to hear that's stupid. Nobody would ever buy that. That's insane. Great. I love that. Thank you for keeping me safe. But what if? What are some possible ways? What might be something I can play with? What's a little thing that would be fun? And you start to ground all that down and bring all that down into your body, into your core. And then, like, to me, it's just like, I have this like, boom, do the thing, go.
Mhm.
And I do it, and I trust it. People, I know a lot of people are like, just tell me how you got from, where you were to where you are now, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, I got centered, I got grounded, and I took the step. Like,
I want to add to that too,
that's
because
it.
yeah, in the beginning too, I was like, all right, because I think I signed up a little bit earlier because I wanted that the bonus of something that had to do with structuring and figuring out programs, right? That because
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'm transitioning. I need the layout, right?
Yeah.
But I know that you from the beginning, and I hear you time and time again say this with each new wave that comes in, which is and I'm like, oh, now I remember how that felt. But I mean, it's good. It's part of the process. So there are questions that I feel like are part of that structure. And so perhaps for people who are listening and want to know how, and like you're saying, this is that logical structure that includes the body's voice and starting you developing that neural pathway or that new process, that new habit to getting it right, whatever right looks like for you. It does start with asking the better questions for you. And there are specific ones with your BodyMind method. Perhaps you can kind of go through that for people listening who want to know which questions to ask to bring them forward.
As far as like, yeah. So to me, it's really, one, you need to acknowledge where you are. Remembering that I think our culture has said that there's good feelings and bad feelings, good emotions, bad emotions. And so a lot of times where people get stuck is like, I feel fear, stress, pain, overwhelm. That's bad. Let me shove that down. And now I have to go outside of myself to find the thing that's right, good, joyful, happy, whatever. So I think the first part of this is just notice what you feel. A big thing that we talk about in BodyMind is that, again, with the judgments around feelings and emotions, there's often a lot of blocks and it creates a lot of resistance. So start to notice what you feel as energy, right? And this was where Alina, when she was talking about it before, she was like, what are you talking about? Start to just notice and honor, like, I feel the energy of stress. I feel the energy of fear. I feel the energy of overwhelm. Honor and notice what you feel first. And I love calling it energy, because the cool thing about energy is neutral. And energy you can work with. Okay. So, and it also, energy brings it into the body. Right. So for me, I noticed the energy of grief. Like, that in itself was a really healing moment for me. Because I could start to play, and it's funny, I just start to feel a little swirl. You probably felt that too. I just feel a little swirl down here. So notice that, right? I like to wrap that with love. Just let it know that I hear it. Sometimes, if it has anything to say, that's wonderful, and I'll listen. One of the questions that we love is like, once you honor and notice what's showing up, to ask, you can ask your head, but I really love it. Like, I think Alina demonstrates this. She actually asked her core, how do you want to feel? It's your heart space that I think you ask. How do you want to feel? Or even, what's the feeling of my purpose? What is the feeling of me living my passion, right? So that question, as soon as you ask it, right, your brain will find the answers to every question that you ask it. So if you start to say, well, how do I want to feel? Or if you have a goal, let's say your goal is you want to make $1,000 this month. How would accomplishing that goal feel? It would feel accomplished. Just kidding. It would feel purposeful. What is the feeling of purposeful? What is the energy of purpose? How can I start to feel that energy in my body? Mm-hmm. And once you start to do that, like, what's really cool is your body will actually start to do that. And that's the phase where we start to, if you want to feel purposeful, joyful, happy, expansive, restful, calm, grounded, as soon as you acknowledge that, your job is to take the action that allows you to feel that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And again, so what's happening here, this is a matter of physiology. This is why it is the path. As soon as you start to feel that way, now your logical brain says, oh, I feel happy. I want to go do this. Wouldn't it be cool if we did that? Wouldn't it be fun if I go help that person feel happy too? So now what's happening is your brain is actually, like, the three brains are starting to work together. You're aligned with the purpose. You're grounded in the moment. You're embodying that. And the brain in your head is saying, oh, I can see how I see possibility in this. And that's when you start to see your path forward. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I think this is the final part of this, is when you align and you start to hear those things, you have to commit to taking action. This is actually probably my beef between the coaching mindset space and like the embodiment holistic space. I see so many coaches who are like, go, 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 hustle, go, go, go. And then I see so many, holistic people who are like, just be, I'm just going to be here.
Yes.
It's a combination of both. You need embodiment to really tap into the aligned action, and you need the action to expand your embodiment. Mm-hmm. It's both. You need both. And just one step, and notice what shows up. And again, you'll probably, next wave of energy that shows up, honor it, love it, wrap it with love. What is it? How do I want to feel? What does it feel like to be aligned in my purpose, right? To start those better questions, embody that, feel it, ground it. The next idea shows up, you take the action, like it starts to become a process. And I know I already said this, but like, my path was not, I knew all the answers and I just followed the system. My path was, I did the thing that typically scared the shit out of me, mm-hmm. because it was from my alignment, which is the most vulnerable action you can take, because it required me to be me. Mm-hmm. And I did it. And so I now have a decade worth of evidence that this is my path and that is the way. Mm-hmm. And it's so I love how it's counterintuitive, because I really actually think it is counter logical. But I just know this is the process. And when you step away from having like the thinking way forward to the feeling way forward, you will blow your mind what is possible. You will, like, so much opens up, because now you are living like truly in alignment with the planet, with the world around you, with the people around you, and most importantly with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And to bring that full circle to, what you said in the beginning about this being your passion project, passion feeling that.
Yeah, totally.
Doing this for a decade, like you said, how does it feel for you? You talk about the body mind wave, and it's definitely like been waving up pretty. I like that, make waves behind you too. But how does
This is from Audrey. And then I have another one
Bobby
up there.
Joe's up there too,
Yeah,
right?
Bobby Joe's up there too. Bobby Joe's is up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So yeah, how does that feel, like seeing this, like seeing that, like, you know, especially for that voice in your head in the beginning that probably said, this is stupid. Now looking back on this and seeing this wave, how does that feel for you?
It is so humbling. And I will have to tell you, one of my growth edges is receiving that. My head is like, and I laugh because I say this in the group and people don't believe me. My head feels like I still haven't done enough. My head, like, I still feel like I'm just getting started. Like my, you know, I still have to, you know, it's funny. I think we teach what we're here to learn. So this process, I have to recommit myself to every single day. And it is so humbling to think that something that was just an idea, something that was just a curiosity, has turned into something that is now reaching around the world. And if you had said, Laura, figure out how you're going to get this message around the world from the beginning, never would have been able to figure it out. It has truly been a path of feeling my way forward, letting it be messy, honoring my truth. People don't know. I mean, I have stopped selling things that sold really well because they weren't aligned. I've made decisions that go against, you know, best practices and logic with business, because I'm like, that's not right for me and my values. And whenever somebody shows, like, so we'll just use you, when Alina shows up in my program and then I get to meet her in person at our workshop, I sit here and I'm like, I am still in disbelief that such amazing people are choosing to show up and step into this work. And it's an honor for me to be colleagues and stand next to you. So it's humbling. And I think I do block myself from receiving that, because there's a part of me that doesn't feel worthy to be in such great company with such amazing healers.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, honest, and genuine expression. I think it's so important, because I know that you and I've spoke about this too, like when we met in person and whatnot. For me, on the other end, I also feel humble that I had the opportunity to, you know, part of it, is me, but also by you embracing your truth, which as spiritual women of faith, we know that has a lot to do with that, you know, universal sovereign, you know, God's purpose. And when it's that big and that expansive, it feels your heart's purpose feels really big. So when you channel that, you do make these connections that are way bigger than us. And I think the humbling thing that comes in for both ends and receiving that, you know, it has a lot to do with wanting to remain humble, and like when someone thanks you, like I know that your initial reaction is, oh, I'm just like you in this together, which is true. And I think it's also beneficial to recognize that, you know, so for people, students watching, or anyone who knows you, and like, this happens in the world, right? We put people on a pedestal. And, you know, to be careful with that, because we are all just human. And you know, what I've received from you is permission to be me, and permission for all of us to kind of rise together, and to receive the compliments back and forth, not to be like, oh yes, I'm big and amazing, but it's more like, no, you know what? I'm following my path. This is genuine. This is authentic to me. You're following your path. This is genuine, authentic to you. Let's do this together, you know?
And how they weave together. And I have two things to say to this. So number one, just the idea of, for me, and as I've grown my business and my values, the question that I come back to as I grow is, because connection is another one of my values, is how can I use connection how can I deepen the connection with our members, with this work, with this process? So instead of me thinking about how am I going to grow my business, I think about how can I connect, cultivate connection, and take this deeper. That is how I grow. And then the second thing that I want to say is around this idea of being humble. because I think I've really had to play with an outdated version and definition of being humble. Because I think a lot of us feel that being humble is downplaying ourselves, is not rocking the boat, or being kind, and there's a very, like, to me, I have this old definition that's very like small and huddled forward and like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my definition, this actually loops back around because I told you I had two stories come up. I actually think that being humble is really being seen for who you are, and receiving for who you are, and knowing that who you are is going to ignite and serve everybody around you, and give them permission to step up and be themselves. There's so one of my stories, I mean, I just, from an early age, I always felt like I've always been drawn to be seen. Like I've never, it's so weird. I'm really a quiet, private person, but I have no problem like stepping on a stage. Like, right. And I used to struggle with this idea that, well, I should be humble. I should help people. I should be like, I can't be seen and be humble at the same time. And I think if you're feeling called, if you're feeling that you have a purpose, a mission, a vision, if you have a process, if you have a way to help one other person, you are being asked to be seen. And being seen is being humble. And again, I'm talking about being seen as who you are, not being seen with a mask on. Right? Because I could come out here and say, "Hi, I'm Laura," and like, it's amazing, everything's perfect, but it's and I hope you see this and know this, and I've experienced this in the program. Like, I am human, and I also have a vision and a mission and a desire to lead. Those two things like go hand in hand, and like to step in, to be seen for who you are, to take the action, to put yourself out there, receive for who you are, and allow like that work to flow through you is very humbling.
Yeah. I think when you like you brought up in the beginning, when you connect to your intuitive space, a big part of that is that divine spirit, the divine knowing. And I think the definition of humility, like you're expressing it, the old definition anyways, as a spiritual person, that sometimes that old definition can come in and can stifle and make you feel like you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
But when you align with your core values, and if spirituality is one of them, and is, God for you, if that's what it is for you, when you connect to that, then you realize that by you leading and by you living out your purpose, for me, I visualize it like, I'm that clay in his hands, and the way that I help spread his word or his message is by being myself, is by being authentic, and by allowing that connection to flow through. And in that way, it's not about Alina's message per se. It's about, my message has a lot to do with love, that, in different ways. And I'm not just preaching love, I'm showing it, I'm feeling it, I'm acting it. And I'm doing that because I want to say so much more. I want to say very simple. When you just did that meditation on our last group call, I was so hyper and like all over the place. And I'm like, I got to get grounded. And I sat there, I was trying to close my eyes. And then you were like, visualize yourself 2 or 3 years in the future. And I immediately saw a beach in Hawaii. And then you said, it could be like a beach in Maui. And I'm like, she's in my thoughts again. Anyways, but with that, there was a message that came through for me. And what I heard was, as people, you invited us to imagine people that we've connected to, that we've helped, that are like, hosting this dinner, and they're one by one expressing the impact that I had on their life. Like, they're thanking me for ... and you helped me with ... But the message and the feeling that came through for me was, I'm here for you because he was there for me first. And I realized that everything I do with the connection and the collaboration and the business and, relationships, it comes back to that space. And so for someone who also had that old definition of being humble means being small, and, you know, not being in the limelight, not bringing attention to yourself, because it's not about me. But when your life is aligned with that universal power and that universal purpose and that connection with every human being, that golden thread is the energy from above. And when you align to that and you humbly let it lead you, then part of that is being seen, because then it allows other people to do that. Right? Yeah. That's it.
That's just it. That's just like the whole meaning of life right there.
Right. I love how you said that. I know we can talk about this forever, but I mean, I appreciate you being here, and, you know, for everyone listening, if any of it resonates with you, I know Laura's been doing some amazing stuff regardless. So I didn't know if you wanted to, you know, wrapping up, if you wanted to share anything else, or invite people into, I don't know if you're still doing your boot camp.
We're doing lots of things. It is, and this is that, like, I still feel like I have so much more that I'm being called to accomplish. I just think, you know, just a message for anybody listening. You are enough. You have what you need to take the next step. And, you know, that there is a gift. You are a gift. There is something that has been put in you that the world needs. And oftentimes we see it as ordinary, obvious. Doesn't everybody do this? And really, honestly, it's not ordinary. It is not obvious. And it's why the world needs to hear it through you. And so that idea of just being embodied, taking the step, continuing to just trust and play in that space, there's so much waiting for you if you would just allow. As far as people following me on Instagram, I'm at Laura Wieck on Instagram. Also on Facebook, Laura Wieck. I think my full line is like Laura Wieck, the BodyMind Coach on Facebook. That was like my very first thing. And then also, if you are a practitioner who is kind of curious about what we teach and why we teach, I have a free training that you can find at thenewbodymind.com/spark. You can go there and watch that, and that will invite you to go talk with my team and see if we're a good fit to work together. So,
yeah,
and also,
I'll have the links to all of that to connect with Laura.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds good. And also, if you just, you know, if you connect with Alina and hear something, Alina can put you in touch with my team to connect, because she's amazing and wonderful as well. So, and anybody who's listening, who's like, just wanting to tune in, please just go schedule a session with Alina, because she's brilliant and amazing.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate your time. You're amazing.
Oh my gosh, I feel like we could talk for like 5 hours.
We can.